Hello, my name's Sara Louise and I'm going to read a poem from the project. It's called the Pili Pala Paradox in English. This is the English video. I'll make a Welsh video of me reading the Welsh version of the poem. I'd been inspired by reading a poem by Kiện, one of the other poets on the project, and she had written a poem called Learning Late Letters, and that was something she'd had published before the project began. And I'd read this poem and I had been thinking about it and processing it, but I think by being a part of the project, after the first workshop, I was feeling full of inspiration and what we call yr awen in Welsh. And I had gone downstairs and had cooked the tea, and we'd had tea, and I was just doing the washing up, and I suddenly started thinking about an old story that I had written about 10 years ago, which was based on a dream I'd had where I had met my paternal grandfather through the dream, through a sort of tesseract, a little bit like in Interstellar. And I still maintain, I still feel like I actually met him, even though he died long before I was born. And this poem that Kian had written sort of reminded me of that story and that experience, because she's talking about her relationship to her father and what happened after he died, and she was no longer getting letters from Vietnam to, I think it was America, where she was living. And this sort of struck a chord around kind of our relationship with dead relatives, I suppose, something like that. So yeah, I'm going to read the English version, but from a translation point of view, it's very interesting because the original story that I wrote that in Welsh because the dream that I had was in Welsh, because my grandfather, Glyn Edwards, was a Welsh speaker, and so the dream, and so was his wife, my grandmother, and my nine. And the dream that I had was therefore in Welsh, where I was talking and interacting with them. The Pili Pala from the title, that means butterfly. It's one of the Welsh words for butterfly. And this is something that is key to the story and then to the poem, because it's about a necklace that I was given in the dream. My tide had been stood in a room, and he was writing something on a box, and I couldn't see what he was writing. But then later in the dream I was older and I got the box, and in the box there was this Pili Pala or butterfly necklace, but it was changing shape and it was in flux, but then it finally settled as this one particular type of butterfly. And I went looking for a necklace like this after I'd had this dream, because it affected me so much. And I looked up butterfly and dream as a sort of, in terms of symbolism, and there was actually a lot of symbolism online through Google, which actually matched some of the themes of the dream as well, some of the things that I'd been thinking during the dream. And then later still, I was telling my parents about this dream and about the story I'd written, and my mum said, oh, you did actually have a necklace when you were little, and you did call it the Pili Pala necklace, and it was actually your nine who gave you that necklace. So there's also a little bit about sort of forgotten memories sort of resurfacing through a dream, which wouldn't surprise me so much now, because I'm doing a lot of kind of self psychoanalysis work, deliberately trying to look through my memories. But at the time that I wrote this story and I had the dream, that wasn't a thing either. But anyway, I will read this poem. So it's called, and I wrote it in English because it was a response to an English poem that I had written, which of course originally was written in Vietnamese, or a mixture of Vietnamese and English. And the workshop was through the medium of English, even though half of the poets were Vietnamese and half of the poets were Welsh. So because the contact language was in English, and that was what inspired the poem, I wrote it in English, even though there are bits in it that are obviously in Welsh, because they're Welsh words that I've used. But then when I came to try and translate it into Welsh, I had trouble because I never met my paternal grandfather, I didn't call him he, which is the I never called him anything. So, but you probably use the formal he, which with an older person instead of t. But the way I'd written the English poem was really quite informal, because there isn't that kind of choice to make in English. And then when I came to try and write it in Welsh, it made it even more difficult for that reason. I think there was a certain way within this poem that I guess I was relating to him in a more informal way through the medium of English than I would have if I'd have had the thoughts in Welsh. I'm not really quite sure what that says about my mindset, but anyway. The Pili Pala Paradox. Tide, I never met you, because you died long before I was born. But you came to me in a dream to warn that I was losing myself in a world not meant for me, and repressing my true self. Through the silver Pili Pala in wooden rooms you helped me see, and I cut loose from the confines which were poisoning me. Now I'm free, enjoying my creativity. I'm so glad we had the chance to meet through the dream world tesseract.